and it is now time to review AEW Grand Slam Australia, which happened on February 15, 2025, from the Brisbane Entertainment Centre in Brisbane, Queensland, Australia. A show that has had quite a vibe around it, quite a history around it. I don't want to get into the particular weeds or the details and about itself, and I've talked about it a little bit on other iterations of the MrWarrenHayes show or Dynamite Review. I don't remember exactly where I talked about it. I didn't go as in depth on the whole promotion of this show as other outlets did. You know, Rich over at Voices of Wrestling did a tremendous job keeping an eye on everything, being very critical of how it was put together. I made my stance pretty clear, I think, last week. I think it was on the Dynamite Review. I can't quite remember, or if it was on stream. Look, it doesn't really matter. But I made my point on this, and it still remains the same. The show was indeed promoted to be, well, of course, a big stadium show, but also was meant to be special. It was meant to be, I think it had that pay-per-view vibe about it, and it was meant to be a pay-per-view. Things happened. We had to go to plan B, and we downgraded from, I can't remember what the stadium was, to the Brisbane Entertainment Centre, which again caused a lot of controversy. Of course, it's a smaller venue to begin with, but then you also had people mentioning that Brisbane isn't exactly the easiest or funnest city to go visit in Australia. It's not necessarily a place where local Australians will cheer when big events happen there. No one is looking for reasons to go to Brisbane. Let's put it that way. But these are all things that I heard that people were telling me about, people who live in Australia. My stance here is okay. Well, it was a downgrade, was probably a good idea, because if they felt that they weren't going to be able to hit the max for the stadium that they had selected, then it was probably best then that day that they downsize a little, pack that place up, and so be it. Now, if AEW fans in Australia purchase tickets from the get-go, expecting a stadium pay-per-view, and end up with what is essentially a Battle of the Belts type event. A lot of people say it's a collision. Sure, I could go with that as well, but but it felt a little higher than a collision, which I guess what Battle of the Belts always meant to be, despite then ending up sucking and just being bad. I think the at least in our collective brains, Battle of the Belts was destined to be more like a Clash of Champions than just a humdrum show. And I think that this Grand Slam show was more than a collision, and there were matches on here that were significant, that were very, very significant, both in execution and as far as story bumps goes, angles, so on and so forth. But it's not a pay-per-view. So if people were upset that they purchased a ticket thinking that they were going to get a pay-per-view and they got this instead, well, I can't blame them for that. That's absolutely fair, because AEW did absolutely give the impression that they were going to deliver a big time pay-per-view, and they didn't. But they did deliver a solid show in this building. Oh, and one last point too. Going from a stadium to this venue is a downgrade. There weren't as many seats, so of course. But the one thing that we have to keep a sharper focus on, as opposed to going around saying, oh, AEW takes another L, is that they still managed to pack up this arena and pack it. We don't have the exact numbers because no one at this point when I'm recording, which is on Sunday, the 16th, no one is actually talking about the numbers. No one has put out any numbers. WrestleTix has not been able to track it because of, a bunch of technical considerations. So WrestleTix has not been tracking it as per usual, but this building was packed. You look at the attendance, at the capacity, I should say, for the building, and they say 13,500 for concerts. So I don't know if that's around 13,005 for it, right? I don't know if that's like what we got or how close we were to that for the show. But if they were able to get 13,000 people into this building, that's a success. I don't know what to tell you. That was just I don't know what to tell you. It's just a success. You can't say, oh, they took an L, especially considering, from what I understand, the Brisbane Entertainment Center is like the second biggest indoor venue in the country. So it's like, okay, it's not as if they're it's not as if they're moving to some, small time college arena in, Kansas or whatever the fuck, it's like, no, this was a it's decent attendance that made a lot of sense and made a lot of money. What was it like? I think I should have checked this out before starting. Shouldn't have I? I shouldn't have I? Have I? Shouldn't have I? But I think Tony Khan was saying that it was the third biggest gate in the history of the company. No, it was Dave Meltzer. Dave tweeted out a couple of days ago, with 2 days before showtime, the gate for AEW in Brisbane is now the third largest in the history of AEW, having topped Forbidden Door 2023 for the number 1 spot. And I believe that Forbidden Door, the gate was around 1.3 million, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. For Forbidden Door 2023 was 1.3 million. So we know that it's done at least $1.3 million at the gate. So that's, you cannot call this a failure. So the main problem that this show is going to have moving forward, as far as it, calling it a success or not, is the fact that it needed to be downgraded from a stadium show. And that's going to cloud a lot of issues moving forward, because if they hadn't had to downgrade, if AEW had just gone in to Brisbane straight out the gate, no one would be sitting here. We wouldn't be having this conversation going, oh, well, and having all of this talk, and then having to deal with the perception that the show isn't successful, when the show quite noticeably was successful. And on top of that, you had yourself a hot crowd who were there in a packed venue, some great shots. You didn't have to do those annoyingly tight shots of the arena because it's either it's too small or, there's not enough people in it. And, you had these nice wide range shots. AEW looked and felt good again, and that's ultimately what you're looking for. Isn't that what you kind of want out of all of this? So it's hard to say that this was not successful. In fact, I think you only have to be very much bad faith. Yes, we can talk about the downgrade, but ultimately this show worked out and it was successful. Maybe not on the level that they had first hoped it to be, but it's a success nonetheless. If you go into a country, you pack up the building, and you make over $1.3 million off of it, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what you need to determine what success is. Now, yes, they were doing BOGOs. They were doing all sorts of sales and whatnot. I couldn't. How did they paper it? I couldn't tell you how much it was papered, if it was at all. I couldn't tell you. But the point is you get people in there, and despite doing BOGOs and whatnot, you do 1.3 million. And from what I understand, this was a bot show. Like there were people involved in bringing AEW over, basically that paid AEW to bring them over. From what I understand, I wasn't fully aware of this until like last week or something. I don't know if you all knew this, but whoever were the Australian promoters on this, well, they got a nice little chunk of change, to the point that they announced that they were going to be back next year after the show, right? So I don't know. seems like a good outcome for a show that was solid. I thought this was a solid professional wrestling show. Is this, am I going to be remembering this show come the end of the year? Am I going to be clamoring for the great show that was a Grand Slam Australia? No. But there was enough good stuff on this show for it to be solid. Let's get into it. Let's just jump right in. You'll see exactly what I mean. And I don't know when this started exactly. I watched this earlier this morning, so I didn't watch it live yesterday. So I don't know when Grand Slam actually started, because it started after the All-Star game, right? And they being AEW, did a really smart move by having your two like top athletic guys, right? Will Ospreay, Kenny Omega come out along with two other highly athletic guys, don't get me wrong, but like two top guys that the audience goes crazy for, that have these huge Tron presentations and whatnot. Go out there and do some incredible stuff. So if you're someone who's done watching the if you're someone done watching the NBA All-Star game and you're just sitting back and you're like, oh, wrestling, who's this? Will Ospreay, whatever. But you see people going nuts for him, and then you see him jumping around doing his incredible shit, just like Kenny Omega. Maybe you'll stick around. You'll stick around because you'll be looking at some athletic guys doing some athletic shit in front of a hot crowd. I think that was the smartest thing to do. It was a perfect way to start the show. If you had started this with the Death Riders, like, you could probably make an argument to say, oh, wait, John Moxley, people will remember him and they'll say, hey, that's Dean Ambrose, right? That's what happened to him. Yeah, but to a degree. Like, I think you'd be better off just having your people doing athletic things, essentially, is what I'm saying. And we'll see if that strategy paid off, Cotton, in a couple of days. But as it stands right now, Omega and Ospreay defeated Fletcher and Takeshita in a great tag team match. Like, it was a ton of fun. Very hot opener. What can we say about it? It was hot because you had your top guys in here, and the crowd was hot for it at the same time. Kenny and Will get a lot of big offense in early, of course. Like we said, that was probably part of the strategy. They do a double Rise of the Terminator, which got a big chuckle out of me. You can tell Will is into this homage stuff, where or aping the moves. Will is like, come on, let's do it together, And I know they're working, but sometimes there's just a little glimmer. There's just a little glimmer in someone's eye when they're doing something that they really, really want to do. That's like, oh yeah, let's do this. It'll be cool. Just something cool to do. So that was good. Pulling all the big moves on each other, all four guys, all throughout the match. Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher have a tremendous exchange of acrobatic moves, and Kyle is basically Will's base here, and it is just tremendous. Like, they're just doing stuff on each other that ends with a huge DDT by Ospreay, which is just fantastic stuff. Takeshita Germans both Omega and Ospreay at once. Kenny Omega does a whole Hurricane Rana from the top. Yeah, that's right. He did a whole Hurricane Rana from the top rope. But a little later on in the match, he flubs a Poison Rana spot. Like, really flubs it. And I'm like, this is taped. Why did you keep that? Why did you keep that? Because Kenny really, I don't know, a rare miss by the cleaner here, but I'm like, why was this kept in the final edit? You really could have just got rid of that. Will Ospreay and Omega go for stereo finishers, but the heels reverse out of those, both at the same time, and land a pile driver and a bastard driver. We got them slugging it out some more. Kenny gets the tar beat out of him by the heels. Will Ospreay even has to come in for a big save to keep Kenny from getting pinned. He even turtles him at some point, like just covering him with his body. He's like, no, I shall protect Kenny Omega. It was tremendous stuff, and does a running dive off of the post to the floor, which was amazing. And they end the match with a super cool and super awesome double team to maneuver, a one-winged angel top rope hidden blade combo, which was, okay, this is just cool. Now this is just cool. Thank you very much for the cool match. The baby faces win. I gave this 4.25 star. This was a great match. This was so much fun. And the crowd was into it, and I was into it, and everyone was into it. Everyone looked good here. I'm telling you, these guys in this ring right now, all together. Can you imagine that this is not the top program of the company? That for some reason, neither of these 4 guys is involved in the top program of the company? I don't know what to tell you, but this was a lot of fun. Great match. Match of the night, like easily out the gate. They got rid of that straight out the gate, so that was a lot of fun. Next, Mercedes Moné successfully retained her TBS championship against Harley Cameron. Yeah, I mean, look, this was. I want to choose my words carefully, not that carefully, but I don't want to say something mean because there's nothing to be mean about. But I don't want it to come across as mean. This was the best possible outcome for a Harley Cameron match in 2025. And I even think, look, I will even be as bold as to say that it probably went a little above and beyond what you would expect from a Harley Cameron match in 2025. Now, in case you're new to the channel and my professional wrestling ramblings, I want to underscore this very, very clearly. I like Harley Cameron a lot. Okay, this is a Harley Cameron podcast. We like her. We like her here. She is probably the most all-around entertaining person in all of professional wrestling. Like, I think by far, like we spoke about not that long ago, she by far is one of the funniest, if not the funniest. There's not a lot of people who are funny in pro wrestling. They think they're funny, but doing comedy properly requires a lot of skill, particularly timing and delivery, which a lot of people don't necessarily have. I think a guy like R-Truth in WWE is legitimately funny because he gets it. He understands comedy. I think a girl like Harley Cameron absolutely gets it. Woman, what am I doing here? A woman like Harley Cameron gets it because she is very naturally funny. She's extremely good at what she does. But a lot of times in pro wrestling, we think someone's funny, but really they're not. Do you remember a few years ago? I don't know why this is popping into my head, right? But I know why, because I was looking for a comp. Do you remember a few years ago when the Street Profits first made it up to Monday Night Raw? Do you remember this? Or at least main roster. And I don't know if it was SmackDown or Raw. And look, I'm already getting too much in the weeds. At some point, they had them do SNL Weekend Update bits. Do you remember this? And I think it lasted 2 weeks, or maybe just the 1 week. And people were like, no, this stinks because the guys don't have timing. But everyone thought, oh, Montez Ford, he's so charming and comical and so on and so forth. And Angelo Dawkins was not suited for the role of comedic man in any way, shape, or form. That's a good example where you're like, yeah, we can do comedy. No, really, you can't. You like, this is not funny. This is something Vince would say so many times in regards to his WWE superstars, that they can do it all. They can wrestle, sure, but they can act, and they can do comedy, they can sing, they can dance, right? They can do all of that, but just because you can do something doesn't mean you're good at it. I like to crack a joke once in a while. Does that make me a comedian? Hell no. And I have the foresight, to understand that. The self-awareness to understand that. So, there's not a lot of really funny people in pro wrestling, and I think Harley is. And then on top of that, she sings, she dances. We talked about the rap that she did on Dynamite this week, on the Dynamite review. And again, I reiterate, like, I don't know if she's actually good at rapping or if she's pulling an Iggy Azalea, which, yeah, so, someone would have to tell me. Like, I'm not well versed enough in hip hop, rap culture, music to be appreciative of the level of effort. Like, if it's just basic, like, it seems impressive to me, but I'm a layman. I have no understanding. It's like I'm a child and I'm seeing fireworks for the first time in my life. I'm like, ooh, that seems pretty nice. I'll never, probably no one else has ever done this before, and this is really tremendous, right? It's easy to be impressed when you don't know anything. That's what I'm trying to say. But we shouldn't forget, this is all my very long-winded way of saying that I like Harley Cameron, but I'm also aware that she's like 2 years into her professional wrestling career. Like she is still very incredibly, terribly green, right? She has never really, like, she has one television victory in her career that happened last week. So it's like she gets into the ring and you can see it, like, just in the way she holds herself, the way she performs, the way she executes the moves is what I meant more than performs, the way she executes the moves. Like, there's still hesitancy. There's still her thinking about the move, and now she's thinking, and once it's done, all right, now I got to think about the next one, and so on and so forth. Mercedes Moné was a tremendous guide for her in this match. I think anyone who watches Moné can absolutely sit back, cross their arms, and go, that was a slow match. Mercedes works a little faster than this most of the time. And she probably had to slow it down for Harley so that she could keep up. But the thing is that we weren't wrestling at a crawl either. We're not doing, Ty Mello versus Santana Garrett. That's not the kind of match that we're having here. But it's not as fast as Mercedes usually goes, and that's normal. That's because Mercedes has been doing this for years upon years at this point. She's one of the greatest to ever do it. So she's just making sure that Harley can follow, but still at a decent pace for a wrestling match. We're not trying to carry baby through their first match here. It's more like, okay, well, let's set the pace to this and let's sort of work within those parameters. And Harley held her own. I honestly thought she looked good. Other than things that you can see, that you can spot for someone who hasn't been all that often in a wrestling ring, she did very good. And we both got a very competent, good little match out of it. On top of that, I give it 3 stars. I'll give it a nice flat 3. I think both women worked hard and they didn't overdo it. And, there was the puppet. I was involved in this and, got the big cheers from the crowd. Look, I don't know why AEW is not merchandising these puppets. I don't know why they're not like instantly on the shelves like now. I don't know why. I couldn't tell you. Like, the idea is make money, right? And a lot of people said it's like they never sold Penta or Phoenix masks. Now, I know there might be some IP issues with AAA. I mean, it might not be all that easy. But the point is that you have something that has the potential to make a lot of money for you. And I know a puppet is not like putting out a t-shirt. There's probably something a little more demanding out of it, but fuck, man, at the very least, you can do a limited run of 100 and you sell this shit for like $100, right? Am I wrong in thinking this? Like fucking, what's his name? The ventriloquist comedian who's not funny. Jeff Dunham, right? Jeff Dunham, the guy with the ventriloquist with the dead terrorist gimmick, right? You know who I'm talking about. That guy sells his puppets. That guy sells his puppets on Amazon. okay? He sells its own. You can have a nice little ventriloquist puppet based off of his actual ventriloquist puppets, and he sells them on Amazon for like $200. I'm not kidding. You can check this out, okay? If you don't believe me, go right ahead. You can buy, I don't know if you can buy the skeleton, the dead terrorist, but you can buy the other like purple geek. I've seen these. You can buy Jeff Dunham puppets. Why couldn't AEW? And he sells them for like $200. This is this is the batshit insane thing. He sells them for $200. So I'm like, okay, why doesn't AEW do this? Mass produce 100 of these puppets with the goofy hair and just sell a limited series of them. Fucking YouTubers do this. The YouTubers do this. They have their plushies. And then all of a sudden you have this random fucking YouTuber who does like, I don't know, Roblox gameplay videos. It's like, buy my plushie. It's like, then he's got a plushie. And it's like the third one he's put out. It's a third series of this plushie. And I'm like, who the fuck is this guy? Like, I don't understand. And it's successful enough for him to have put out like 3 different series of this fucking plushie. Why can't AEW put out a Mercedes Moné fucking puppet? I don't it blows my mind. And no matter what you feel about the puppet, it's a merchandising opportunity. It's huge. They could be making a lot of money with this. Anyway, the puppet gets kicked around in this match. Until Harley uses it, and it's clearly angry. The head has the furrowed brow. The puppet was mad. Yeah, Harley does a flying crossbody and a Canadian destroyer at some point. Powerbomb and Meteora by Mercedes, who also earlier in the match does the 3 Amigos. Harley's eating it and dishing it out. Terrible Tiger feint kick by Harley, though. She should not do that. And I think no one should do Tiger feint kicks in 2025 anymore. I think that move should be retired. Just leave Rey Mysterio do it. Even his look like shit now. Just let Rey do it, and that's the end of that, right? Harley goes for a swanton. She wipes out and eats the moneymaker for the win. Like I said, good match. Good little match that they had. I'm not gonna. Is this a match of the year? Hell no. It's not making anyone's list. I don't think. But the point, I think, once again, that we're underscoring when talking about Harley Cameron, at least when I'm talking about Harley Cameron, is that she has tremendous potential, as much as an in-ring performer as an outside of the ring performer. She is someone that when her contract comes up, I throw all the money at to hang on to. I do not want this woman to go to WWE. I don't. I really, 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 really don't. After the match, Momo Watanabe is at ringside. It's funny. Momo Watanabe is at ringside, and from Stardom, of course, and she sort of steps up to Mercedes, and Mercedes sort of pie faces her with the TBS title, and Momo's like, "Rrr." And no one on commentary fucking mentions her. Was there a mention of Momo early on in the show that maybe was edited out of the Max version? Because I watched it on Max. What? I don't understand. No one mentioned Momo Watanabe from Stardom there, and on commentary, and how Mercedes was pie facing her, clearly setting up some kind of match somewhere. Baffling. So next, before we get to the next match, they announce, they have, I should say, Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay cut promos backstage to challenge their heel counterparts of the Don Callis family. They have Will Ospreay challenging Kyle Fletcher in a cage, which is really fucking cool. This, of course, both matches are for Revolution, by the way. So, Ospreay challenging Kyle Fletcher to a cage match, which I am 100% for. And then it gets messy, but not it gets messy because of something that happens later on in the show. And we're all going to cover this in one spot here. So Kenny Omega challenges Konosuke Takeshita for the international title at Revolution. And I'm like, hot damn. And I'm rubbing my hands together. I'm like, let's go. Kenny Omega, one of the greatest in the world. Konosuke Takeshita, I throw in that same boat. He is tremendous. And I'm like, now I'm excited. I'm like, let's go. This is Revolution, man. Revolution is the big ass AEW pay-per-view. AEW pay-per-view. Every year, for the past 2 years, they've just been incredible shows. Last year, all-time great wrestling show. So they're stacking it up again this year. Fletcher and Ospreay locked in a cage, and then Takeshita and Omega going at it. Like, I'm so stoked for this. But here's the thing. A little later on in the evening, we get a graphic appear with too much information on it for the time that it's being displayed on TV, right? The thing is on like TV for like 5 seconds, and there's like 3 columns of information and a big banner, and it's like, I'm trying to process all the information, but boom, it's like it's gone already. And it's probably less than 5 seconds. I feel like in 5 seconds, I could at least have gotten the gist of it, but I had to go back and watch this. I had to go back and press fucking pause and read what the hell was being presented to me. So we're doing an international series, okay? International Championship Series. And the series is one match. It's one match, and it's divided into 3 parts, okay? The first part, Roderick Strong versus Orange Cassidy, both former international champions that are going to duke it out this week on Dynamite, with the winner facing Konosuke Takeshita the week after on Dynamite for the international title. And the winner of that then moves on to Revolution. That's the third part, to face Kenny Omega. And I'm completely baffled with the sequence of events that have happened on this show. Just absolutely baffled with what just occurred. Earlier in the evening, I have an outright challenge being put forth by Kenny Omega saying, I'm challenging you. And we're rubbing our hands together and we're going, let's go. And later in the show, we get this thing that's announced, which basically retcons what Kenny Omega said, because he's not going to be challenging Konosuke Takeshita directly. He's challenging for the international title, but that's not what we want. And that's not necessarily what Kenny Omega wants. He wants to fight Takeshita for the title. Not just Roderick Strong or Orange Cassidy. He wants Takeshita. And now Takeshita is in a position now where he has to earn his spot to fight. He has to earn the spot to fight Kenny Omega at Revolution, which is completely bonkers. He, the champion, has to fight for the opportunity to fight his challenger. That makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense. Now, if Kenny Omega had said, I'm coming for you, Takeshita, somewhere down the line, I'm going to get you, kind of thing. It's like, all right, that's cool, right? And then you have this little international series where you have Ospreay, not Ospreay, but Cassidy and Storm. You do the whole same thing. Strong, Jesus Christ. You do the whole thing that you've already set up. Cassidy versus Strong to face Takeshita, and then Takeshita, is free for Revolution, right? And then after Takeshita beats whichever of the 2 geeks he defeats, because we know it's not Orange Cassidy or Roderick Strong that are going to be fighting at Revolution, right? At least at this point. So Takeshita wins, and then after the match, after winning the series, essentially, then you have Kenny Omega come in and say, hey, I'm challenging you to Revolution. And then it's like, oh, that makes sense, right? But no, we're going to do this convoluted thing where we won't be able, for 2 weeks now, in a pay-per-view that is going to be in 3 weeks, right? March 9 or something. Let me pull up a calendar here just to make sure. Yeah, and for a pay-per-view in 3 weeks, this one match that a bunch of people will be very excited to see, that could potentially sell some tickets. No, we're going to backburner this one for 3 weeks. I keep saying, with how attendance is in AEW right now, Tony Khan does not have the luxury to do this type of angle. He needs to put his booking, he needs to put his booking's best foot forward at every occasion he can, including this. We can't do secret, what's going to happen. Just be clear. I mean, you know and I know that Takeshita Omega is probably going to be the match at this point, especially since Omega already talked about it, and which also then has the effect of spoiling the outcome of this series and takes away a lot of drama from it because everyone's just shrugging and going, well, it's going to be Omega, so who cares? And instead of hyping that match and making us more excited with angles and whatnot over the next 3 weeks, we're going to do this thing. To a degree, we could have even done Kenny Omega has to be in this series, right? He has to earn his way. Have your little 2-week tournament. Keep Takeshita out of it. He's the champion. You have your little 2-week tournament, and Omega has to earn his way to Revolution. And I don't think anyone would have an issue with that. Do you think anyone would have an issue with Kenny Omega wrestling on their TV for the next 2 Wednesday nights in the lead up to a big pay-per-view match? No, of course not. What a weird decision, and it just looks like it looks like poor communication and or just messy booking that are kind of like, both of which are kind of like hallmarks of AEW in 2025. I don't know. It's so strange. It's so very strange. Anyway, let's move on. Next on the agenda, we have the Death Riders. The Death Rider duo of Jon Moxley, the AEW World Champion, and Claudio Castagnoli defeating Adam Copeland and Jay White. This was a wrestling match that was, look, it was just your standard issue plunder match that just happened to have a little bit of edge to it, no pun intended, because there was razor wire introduced and Mox didn't mind the bleeding, and he bled from the back, and that's pretty much it. I mean, otherwise it's just such a typical plunder match. Here's something that I want to posit on to you, okay? Here's something that I want to, I know I've complained quite a bit about the Death Riders and how they struggled and still do to feel important and truly a threat to AEW, because their only opposition so far, their only true opposition, has been mid-carders, right? Like, the lower mid-carders on top of that, the Dark Order and, Mark Briscoe, and guys who are not top guys in this company, right? The top flight kids and so on and so forth, like guys that you don't associate with winners. Private Party, all of this sort of came together here, and the Death Riders struggled to in their credibility on that front, but they did have like a faction of pro wrestlers who were trying to stand up against them, right? Because they didn't want the Death Riders to take over or whatever the fuck. Now we have Adam Copeland and Jay White, who are in this match and are getting overwhelmed by numbers and underhanded tactics and whatnot. Why aren't the Death Riders, why aren't the baby faces being supported by people backstage? Why aren't the the original resistance to the Death Riders, why aren't they running out to try and prevent them? Like it doesn't make sense, because what you see here is Copeland and FTR for that fact, right? So all you see here is Copeland and Jay White getting the piss beat out of them by the numbers game, and no one on the babyface side of the locker room is like, I'm going to go lend a hand. You know, legitimately not that long ago, Will Ospreay was saying, I want to get involved on this Jon Moxley stuff, but I can't because this would have been a nice little opportunity to just do something, right? You know, not with how things shook out. Just bear with me, like hypothetically. Doesn't that make sense? Makes more sense than these people just like running around doing whatever the hell they want and no one coming in to help them. I don't know. But look, I thought, you know, I thought this was good, if unremarkable. 2 3/4 stars. Like I didn't necessarily think this was good. I didn't think it was bad, passable, mediocre, whatever. It is what it is, you know. And here's the curious thing: is that Jon Moxley, the champion, the heel champion, it choked out his challenger, just yanked back and choked him out, and he died in the ring. Well, you know what I mean? Not really. It's a wrestling show. You know, he passed out, and that's that. You know, the champion, the world champion is having the pay-per-view match, choked out the challenger beforehand. Okay, so what's Revolution for? What's the Revolution match for? I just saw the result. I see what's going to happen, right? Now, I heard someone put out a very distressing theory that, in fact, Adam Copeland, by losing this, if you follow pro wrestling logic, it would imply that Adam Copeland is going to win at Revolution, right? You lose the warm-up match, but you win the real one. Adam Copeland wins, and then Christian Cage does his cash-in gimmick and becomes world champion. And I kind of think that sucks. And it's a shame, but I'm not going to expand too much on that. That's just like a terrible thought that just came through. And I'm like, oh, that's right. This fucking I hope we never do another fucking cash-in ever again in AEW. I hope this is done. This fucking briefcase shot you can claim at any time. I'm so over this shit. I don't like it. I don't like Money in the Bank, and I don't like this. Kazuchika Okada defeated Buddy Matthews to retain the Continental title. This was a good match. It was a good, well-wrestled match. Look, let's handle this straight off the bat. 3 stars from me. I don't think it was anything remarkable. I think it was well done. I think it was good. Was it that good? No, I don't think it was that good. But you know what? Here, I'm just thinking about it more. I'm just looking over the notes. We're going to bump it up a 1/4 star. 3 1/4 star. Because, you know, it's solid enough and it's well worked. And everyone's doing like good stuff. And, you know, Buddy Matthews is, you know, he's pulling out the big moves and the big strikes. And you're like, okay, this, you know, we're into a groove here. But I feel like the match was interrupted just as we were about to hit another gear. We never got that other gear. Then again, Okada likes the, you know, he's a 20-minute match guy, not a 13-minute match, not a 13-minute one. So it is what it is. My only complaint here is Kazuchika Okada should be putting Buddy Matthews away without cheating. Shouldn't he? Right? Don't we believe that Kazuchika Okada should be putting guys away without cheating, particularly guys who are not meant to be in the same lane? I mean, it establishes that very clearly, and would only help Okada down the road. You know, sometimes it's okay for heels to exhibit dominance and just be a clear winner in a match. Look at what happened with MJF just earlier this week on Dynamite. He got into the ring with Dustin Rhodes and put him away without any nonsense, without the dynamite diamond ring or low blows or anything. Just won him over. Just a clean win over Dustin, which he should. That's the thing, is that he should be able to defeat Dustin Rhodes without chicanery, because Dustin, in the hierarchy of AEW, you know, in the lanes, like I talk about quite a bit, he's not on the same lane. He's not in the same lane as MJF. He's on a completely different one, a lower lane, and he should be put away decisively by a top guy. I don't know why we had to do this here, but yeah, the superplex jackhammer spot was cool from Buddy. That was tremendous. Does the standing cloverleaf in an homage to his misses. And yeah, so the referee, there's no ref bump. The referee is distracted. You know, Okada's hanging on to him. And meanwhile, Okada does the reverse kick between the legs. And that's it. We're done. What a shame. Anyway, 3.25 match, 3.25 star for this one. And finally, the main event was saw Toni Storm defeat Mariah May to become the new AEW Women's World Champion. I don't know who else was expecting any other outcome to all of this than this, in this very physical, very hard-hitting match that I appreciated tremendously. I thought it was a lot of fun, good, strong, physical, no nonsense, no, gimmickry or foolishness. Toni Storm comes out and she's doing the Toni Storms thing, but she's dressed in the Australian flag colors. She's got the little Union Jack on one side and the stars on the other. I thought this was very good. The Toni Storm is, she's pulling out all the Germans that she can, up to 6 German suplexes consecutive on Mariah May, and Mariah shotgun suplexes her on the floor. There's some submissions. Mariah May's doing the Mayday on the floor, which is tremendous as well. Toni does 3 consecutive hip attacks and the Storm 0 to try and put the match away, but Mariah May kicks out. Mariah May does 2 Maydays. Toni Storm kicks out. Running powerbomb by Toni Storm, followed by a Storm 0, but Mariah May rolls out of the ring, which I thought was tremendous at this point. She comes back, fights back. Storm 0 goes for the Mayday, but Toni Storm inside cradles her and gets the surprise pin win. And Mariah May is no longer the world champion. So how about that? Clearly this feud is not over. Clearly they're going to have one more left in the tank, and we're probably going to get it at Revolution. And it's probably something that's going to involve, I would say, blood. I think this is a necessary bump here, but I don't think this by any chance ends this feud. I think we're going to have the proper blow off in a couple of weeks at Revolution, and I would be entirely for them making this some kind of hardcore bloody match. The hardcore matches of AEW's women's division are always good, always great. So let these two just go completely bananas, as long as we can rein in the nonsense like we did here. This is a no-nonsense wrestling match, and I like that. I love it. I like that a lot. 3.5 stars out of 5, actually. I was kind of expecting them to start building up to a big pinfall win. And I was like, oh, the match is done. So that, but what I saw was good. So yeah, I don't think it's over by a mile. I think we're just going to circle back to it in a couple of weeks. And again, I'm all right with that. If they give it a big final stip, I am 100% okay with it. 100% okay. So there you have it, folks. AEW and their Grand Slam Australia show. Super solid professional wrestling show. No nonsense. No tomfooleries, just people wrestling. What more do you want? Just people coming in, doing matches, beating the piss out of each other, doing some spectacular moves, doing some good in-ring storytelling. I can't help but make the correlation as, in regards to the Battle of the Belt shows, who have always been disappointments. I've always been like, maybe outside of the first one, which had the appeal of something new. From that point on, they all stunk, right? No one. So I kind of look at this show and I'm like, this is the kind of stuff that Battle of the Belts could have been, but I don't know. They just decided to not do that. Anyway, good show, solid show. If you've got time, check out the tag team match at the start. That's really the must-see match of the show. And, if you want to sit down for a couple of hours, 2 hours in and out of easy breezy pro wrestling watching, I'm not gonna blame you. It's a good show. It's a good show.